Hi and welcome to this video. In this video, we are going to talk about the type keyword, aka type alias. In the previous lesson, we talked about how we can create an object, and there were two methods, right? So the second method is going to be the focus of this lesson, because that is more TypeScript related. That is why you're here. In the first method, we talked about basically like creating a vanilla JavaScript object in TypeScript. That's not why you're here. So as your objects get more and more complicated, it is a better practice to extract the type from the object definition into a separate block of code and then assign it a name and then basically reuse the name of that type. We haven't talked about this kind of typing. So we basically create a name for our type so we can reuse it again and again and again. Now, I'm not going to start with creating a type for an object. That's a little bit more advanced. We are going to start with creating types for basic variables, and then we are going to progress to creating types for objects. So the first thing that you need to know about a type alias, or aka the type keyword, the reason that it is called the type keyword is because we literally use the type keyword itself to create what kind of type we want, whatever kind. The first thing you need to know about that is the naming convention is Pascal case. So this is Pascal case. It is an upper camel case kind of notation. It's the first letter of every word is capitalized, as well as the first letter of the first word. Now in camel casing, you know how camel casing works. Every letter is capitalized for every word except for the first one. But in a Pascal, the first one is also capitalized. You're going to see that in action. So we are going to use the type keyword. I'm just going to type type. This is the first step. And then the name of this type. What do you want it to be called? You can name it whatever you want. Now, since this is Pascal, the first letter has to be capital. Now I'm going to give it a name of string. The name is name itself, but what is the type? So I'm going to explain this one more time just to make sure you really understand it. So this is the type keyword. It is used to create a type. Right after the type keyword, think of this as a let or a const or a var keyword. And what comes after the let, const, var? It's the name of the variable. In this case, it's the name of type. What is the name of the type? It's name. I could say name of type. This is more like understandable. This is the name of the type. And then we have an assignment operator. And right after that, it's string. It doesn't mean that this is a variable and it holds the value string. No. This is the type. So if I say number, number is the actual number type in TypeScript. If I say Boolean, this is the Boolean type. It's not the string Boolean. It's the Boolean type. So when I say string, it means that it is of type string. Now, where can we use that? Let's say I have a variable. Now, in these examples, it's like a little bit silly. It doesn't make sense to do this because you could just straight into the variable declaration, you can just go ahead and type annotate the variable there instead of like extracting the type. But it just, we are getting warm. So it's something like that. So I'm going to say my name, and instead of annotating it to string, we grab the name of this type, copy it, and put it here. Now, what does it require us to write? It requires us to type annotate it to a string. So anything you write here, it has to be a string. You can't say, oh, I'm going to type annotate it to a number. You can't do that, like 10. Why? Because it's going to throw a type error. It's going to say type number is not assignable to type string. Type number is not assignable to type string. This is the type string. Cool. Okay, let's go there. This is a type error. Now, let's take things a little bit further. I'm going to give you the second example is going to be in about arrays. We haven't talked about arrays yet. We are going to cover arrays in their own separate video. For now, just think of it like as a warm-up something like that. So I'm going to create, not there, I'm going to say it's always going to start with the type keyword and then the name of the type. I'm going to say the name of this type is prices. And what is this type? It is a numbers array. So it should be pretty self-explanatory, the syntax that TypeScript uses, because it provides square brackets. We know from JavaScript, the square brackets are the syntax for an array. What is the syntax for an object? It's curly braces. It's not the name of the variable. It's not the assignment operator. Keep that in mind. We have the syntax, we have the declaration block, we have the code. The syntax for an array is a pair of square brackets. The syntax for an object is a pair of curly braces. You have to know that. So we say that this is an array, but since this is the realm of TypeScript, we need to specify what kind of data we can include in this array. So instead of like leaving it like this is like literally an empty array. But we don't want an empty array. We want something, an array to hold something. So I am saying that this array could only hold numbers. That's it. It's that simple. So let's say course prices, and I'm going to type annotated to the type prices. And in here, I could say like whatever, like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And that's okay. That's fine. But as soon as I include a string, there is going to be an error. And it's the same error. Type string is not assignable to type number. Why? Because this array expects every item, every member to be a number, not a string. All right, so that was the second example. Now, if we take a look at our JavaScript, we can see that the types are not being compiled to JavaScript. Why? Because type aliases, or the type keyword, they belong to TypeScript. They're not JavaScript related. And there is something happening that is called being compiled away. So when something is compiled away, it is not going to be included in our final code. So in all types from TypeScript, they're all going to be compiled away during the compilation process. And when you take a look at the JavaScript, there is not going to be one single remnant or like footprint of any type, because that's what has to happen. Types cannot be read by the browser, only pure JavaScript. That's why types have to be compiled away. Cool. Now let's take a look at our example from our previous lesson, and let's try to extract the shape of this object. And I'm going to say example 3 into a type alias. So I'm going to comment these two out, comment this one out, and let's take a look at this. So first off, let's comment this one in. I am going to get rid of all of this. I'm going to cut this, get rid of that, and I'm going to come right here. So what is the first thing? The first thing is type. Cool. What is the second thing that you have to write? It's the name of the type. So the name of a type has to be something general, something broad. Why? Because that's why we use type aliases. We use them to type annotate several variables, maybe like 10 variables, 20 variables, 100 variables. So no two variables are going to be the same. They could belong to one category, one general category, but they're not going to be the same. That's why type alias has to be able to cover all of those variables created, or like basically created from that type. So in this scenario, what I'm trying to create is something that is being sold online. So it's a product that could be sold online. And I could call it product, and it is going to be okay. Now, what happened to that thing, that declaration block, that type that I cut? I'm just going to paste it right here, and it is going to work. Cool. Now, so far, this type has no direct connection to this object. This is what is called the shape of an object. Now, the shape of an object specifies how the object looks. It's exactly as the name suggests. Now, when you type annotate an object with a specific shape, the object has to conform to that shape. It has to obey the shape. Otherwise, there are going to be like errors. Now, how can we basically say that this is the shape of this object? The same way that we used that for this array and we used it for this variable. We are going to come right in front of the name of the object and we're going to type annotate it to the product. Now, here is a clear way, a clear advantage to using types as opposed to like doing this. You could just copy this and put it right here and it would make no difference. You're only required, or as a best practice, you only have to use type aliases when they allow you to write less code. So if I were to have like maybe like another course, I could say course number 1, and I'm gonna put it down here, copy it down here, and I'm gonna say this is basically course number 2. This is course number 2. But in the second course, it's not TS, it's JS. The price is like 99 and the discount is, I don't know, like 75%. Now, I could go this way, or I could like create extra headache for myself, copy that, and I'm gonna basically comment that one out, and I'm gonna come here and I'm going to paste these. So you can see I'm repeating myself in 2 different places. Now, if I had this kind of code, it would be, of course, better to use a type alias because there is one type alias and then I can reuse that type using its name in anywhere that I want, anywhere in my code, instead of like writing repetitive code. So now you can see why there is like a specific advantage to using type aliases. And with this, I just wanted to wrap up this lecture, and I remembered I need to talk about another modifier as well. So we talked about this flag, and I'm going to talk about another modifier that modifies object properties. So let's take a look at this course 2. If I say course 2 dot, and if I use the dot operator, we can see the discount, the name, and the price. But what if I want to include another, like maybe I want to nest another object within this object? So for example, I want to say that this course number 2, it has features, which is basically an object. And within this object, we have a level that is going to be like I could say all levels, and then I'm going to give it a duration as well. Let's start it with 10. Now we're going to see an error because this is not being specified in the shape of the object. So let's go ahead and let's fix that. Features, this is an object. We're going to have level. It has a type of string, and then we have a duration that is going to have a type of number. Now there is still going to be an error because it says this object is missing that type. Now that's not the issue. We can just provide a optional parameter. I don't want it for this TypeScript. I just want it for the JavaScript course. Now in here, if I use the dot notation, we can see the features. Let's take a look at the features. And as soon as I do the dot, we're going to see the duration. Now, if I go ahead and if I change the duration here to 11, okay, now there is an error thrown here. Okay, we could, you know what, instead of like overcomplicating this, what I can do is I can remove the optional flag, and I can add that to our TypeScript. I just want to give you another modifier as well. Let's remove that. Cool. Now, as soon as I change that, the value for the duration is now 11 hours. we were able to change that. Now, the value for duration of the course, it should not be changed by the user. It should be only changed by the author of the course. But clearly here, anyone can change that. And there is no indication as to this property is like private, or it is like it shouldn't be changed, it shouldn't be touched, anything like that. So there is a modifier in TypeScript that is read only. And if I jump into the shape of the object, and if I put read only in front of any property, we can no longer change that. So once you specify the shape, once you say, okay, shape, once you specify the object, you say, okay, within the object, the duration is 10 hours, or it is 20 hours. You can no longer change that here. And there is going to be an error. It says cannot assign to duration, because it is a read-only property. It is fairly straightforward and it is fairly intuitive. And that is just one last thing that I wanted to cover in this video as well. So that's it. See you in the next one.